Today I am canning potatoes, and this is my second day in a row to do this, and I thought I'm going to bring my friends along because when I posted about this on Instagram, so many folks said, how do you do that? So it may be a little labor intensive, but it's really not difficult, and I would like to help you understand better how I have been canning potatoes for years. Welcome to Heritage Ways. This is where I help you create a cozy home with old-fashioned family values. I am Miss Katie, and I love to cook. I love everything about homemaking and baking. Let's see, yesterday I canned potatoes and cooked supper and made 3 loaves of bread from my first cookbook. So we just do all kinds of homemaking around here, but primarily it's my love of cooking and baking that I go back to time and time again and I bring to you. So if those things interest you, I would love to have you subscribe to Heritage Ways and hit the little bell so that you can get notifications when I upload a new video. You'll hear the hum in the background, so please pardon that. That's my little servant girl, as the Proverbs 31 chapter talks about the homemaker having her servant girls. Well, my servant girls are my machines, like my dishwasher, to help me. So I have got my quart canning jars, wide mouth quart canning jars in my dishwasher. So I'm trying to time everything so that that cycle is finished before or when my potatoes are ready. Now I'm in the process of peeling and chopping my potatoes, and I've got them about the same size, like you would maybe for, she gets a little loud sometimes, like you would for potato salad or if you were making mashed potatoes, but the key is they need to be pretty much the same size pieces. So I have those in my pot. I have some already in my pot of water, and I'm going to add some salt to that. Now, if you're looking for particular measurements, then you may want to have your salted water ready to pour on. So when I'm pouring on my water in my jar that you're going to see me doing, if you're bothered by wanting to have particular measurements, you're probably going to want a half a teaspoon of salt per quart. Pint. I think I said a while ago I've got quarts in the dishwasher. I have pints in the dishwasher. Sorry about that. All right, so half a teaspoon of salt per pint, a teaspoon per quart, and then I add that salt in my salted water when I'm warming up the potatoes. But if you again want to make salt water solution, then you would have what I just said, half a teaspoon of salt per pint and a teaspoon per quart. And I just use any salt. I mean, I have canning salt, but I've pretty much always just used, like a Redmond's real salt, something like that, like a sea salt or something like that. And it's always worked just fine because you're really putting it in for the flavoring anyway. Now, yesterday I canned 4 half gallons, and I hot packed them as opposed to raw. So if you're unfamiliar, raw would be meaning not to cook the product before you put it in the jar. Hot pack means you're partially, at least you're heating the product, if not cooking it, to put it in the jar before putting it in. What happened yesterday is my potatoes cooked too long in the pot because I had a couple of phone calls that I had to take, and even though I turned the heat off, they continued to cook, which is a good tip if you need to know that for cooking or making mashed potatoes. You can turn it off and it'll continue to cook. Same with pasta, but be careful you don't let it sit too long. So when I put them in here and then I pressure cooked them for the 50 minutes for the half gallon, it just really almost made mashed potatoes. So one sweet mama homemaker over on Instagram said, you can also use this for, I think it was the Homesteading Pastor's Wife that said this. Homesteading Pastor is the channel on YouTube and Instagram. I think it was his wife that said, you can use this for potato soup. So I probably will. Typically, my potatoes do not look like this in the jar, but I'm not distressing over it. So yeah, half gallon. They did seal, and be using them for potato soup. The potatoes I'm going to use that I can today, Lord willing, they will be put in, added to a soup, added to a vegetable soup, or, drained and fried for breakfast. The possibilities are endless. Potatoes are one of my 3 favorite things to can, and I'd love to hear what is one of your at least favorite things to can, or if you're new to canning and feel intimidated by it, let me know that, and let me know what intimidates you, so that as I go forward canning more products this spring and summer and bringing videos to you, I can know what to address and how to possibly help you, because I've been canning for 20-umpteen years. So this is the pot that I've already cubed and put in water. Let's see, about 4 teaspoons of salt right there in my potatoes to just keep them from turning colors or oxidizing and turning brown. Now I have my tall canner. I can put 2 layers of 7 in each layer for pints. I also like to do quarts of potatoes too, but today I'm doing pints, wide mouth pints. So I can I'm washing 14 jars, and I've already checked the rims to make sure there were no chips or anything. And I will have 2 layers. At the bottom of my canner, I have this tray that came with the canner, and that just sits on the bottom. If you can fashion something yourself. I have heard of people putting a towel on the bottom. I've never done that, but something needs to be on the bottom so your jars aren't resting on the bottom of the canner. This is pressure canning. Again, this is not water bath canning. So I have about 2 inches of water, and I do measure it. I measure it pretty much every time. This is according to my canner's directions on pressure canning, and I will show you in a minute the book I use that says the same thing. And I have used the directions in this book that I'm going to show you. It's my very favorite. In fact, I have very few canning books. I always go to this one book, and I have for 20-something years, like I said. Now, this is to put between the jars. Mr. Patient made this for me out of some wire, and you don't want the jars to sit on top of each other, at least I don't. And so I put the jars, and then I will put this in, and then I'll put the next layer of jars. So that's perfectly fine to do that. One thing is you want everything pretty much the same temperature. Now, you don't have to measure or take the temperature. Basically, you want everything hot or warm. You wouldn't want a cold jar and then the hot liquid, because that will break it. You wouldn't want the hot jar with the food in it put in this water that's cold, because that could crack it. So you want everything either warm or hot. So in a few minutes, I will get this going, and I just want the potatoes. I only want to cook them. I just want to heat them. I don't even want to cook them, because I don't want to have canned mashed potatoes like I do over there. I will get this going so that this is really hot when I stick my finger in it. That's how I measure. And these will be hot, and my jars will be hot. They will be in the drying cycle of the dishwasher. If you don't have a dishwasher, or you don't want to fool with that, you can wash them well in the sink, and then I have many times put them in the oven on their sides, because it's just easier to grab them that way. But anyway, put them in the oven and put it on low, whatever the lowest setting is, usually 170 degrees, or turn the oven all on and get it up to 170, and then put the jars in and turn it off if it's not going to be long. But that's an excellent way to keep the jars warm as well. And a third way is to have them in a sink with really, really, really hot water, almost boiling water, and they can just hang out in the sink. And then another way, I did this the other day when I was canning pineapple. I had the jars, and I water bathed the pineapple. So I had more water in here, but I had the jars just sitting in here. They were clean, and I just put them in here as my water was heating up. So there are several options for having your jars hot, but just if you're a new canner, make sure you have no nicks, chips around the top of the cans, or jars rather, and make sure the jars are hot. Anyway, this is a Presto canner, and I've had this forever. I often have to replace the rings. I have some extra rings. I believe you can have these tested at your agricultural center, your local county ag center. I pretty much just try to replace it every year, and I don't have to have questions about it. I'm going to go ahead and turn that on medium for now, just to get that going. I'm going to go ahead and turn the potatoes on. I also am going to go ahead and start my kettle of, that's my Berkey water that I'll use to fill the jars after I put the potatoes in. All right, some of the tools that, or most of the tools that I'm going to need: my jars that are in the dishwasher. I'm going to need a clean washcloth, and I'll get this wet here in a minute. That's to wipe the rims. Some people dip it in vinegar and use to wipe the rims. I just use a clean washcloth and always had success with that. You need the jar, in no particular order, you need the jar lifter. So I think, oh my, this is as old as the hills. Let's see, a funnel. Sometime I'm going to get myself a funnel that is one of those bigger, nicer ones, and it has the measure and all that kind of stuff, kind of like what my friend Constance at A Good Life Farm uses. But anyway, again, been using this for 18 years. This helps get my lids out of the warm water that I'm going to have them in, so I need to get those here in a minute. And the rings, let me get the rings right now. Okay, this is actually something that Mr. Patient made for me back when we had a donut party for one of our adult children, and for his birthday, and I had 3 of these little things, and the donuts were on here. Anyway, I use it now for the ring holder, and I have more rings ready for me. And then I've got a this tool. Thanks, Miss Connie, for this. I use it all the time now. I did used to use a rubber spatula, but I like this tool because it does have the measurements on here. So when it says to leave an inch head space or ½ inch, that's what this little stair step thing is, and I love that. But anyway, this is to put around, you're going to see me do this in a little bit, put this around the jar to get the air bubbles out, because that's the idea. You don't want the air in your canned products. So this is really good. I need to get my new lids. I have a lot of friends who reuse their lids. I live in Amish country. I have Amish lady friends, and I've asked them. The other day I asked a friend, do you reuse your lids? And she said, yes. Like, that was a dumb question. So anyway, we all teach each other. That's what I love about having Amish friends, because we can teach each other things, and we do. Right, this is stocking up the 3rd edition of the Classic Preserving Guide by Carol Hupping and the staff of the Rodale Food Center, and this is 1986, so a little bit before when I got married. So what I'll do, if you're interested in this book, and like I said, I've used this book. It is my only go-to, quite frankly. There are some other great books that I've seen on eBay, and Thrift Books is where I get my books, and I've seen them there, and that's great, but I've always gone back to this book. So I highly encourage you to shop secondhand places like eBay or Thrift Books, or if you have a local bookstore, a local vendor of some sort that sells books, check there. I'm all about shop small, shop local. I'm all about that. But some of you have said to me over and over that you prefer to shop online and you prefer Amazon. So that's fine. In a recent video, well, several months ago now, I talked about that, and I talked about how we had gotten off of Amazon and then we are affiliates again, and I talked all about that. So I will actually put a link, Amazon link, if this book is found on Amazon. I will put a link in the description box, and I'll also go ahead and just link these things that I've used. If you're the person that for whatever reason you choose to just order online, then you'll have a link for that. Other than that, I encourage you to shop small or local like I do. I get a lot of these things at my Amish stores and so forth. So I will put a link down below if that will be helpful for you. It's a clean cloth, and I am ready to grab my jars. I grab 2 at a time. They are hot. You can tell they're steaming, and I'm just dipping these, putting these potatoes in there, and holds about 2 cups or so. I may have to pull some out. There we go. Put my Berkey water, and then I'm going to get the bubbles out. Leave about 1 inch of headspace. And again, you can measure if you have a way to measure. Okay. Jars are hot. Protect your hands. And just run that utensil around the edge. And yesterday I saw a lot of bubbles coming up on my half gallons. Today, not so much. I just try to make sure they're submerged, but don't be alarmed if some of the water reduces in your jar. It's okay. Your food will still be fine if it's not all submerged. That's not ideal, but it will be fine. Okay, and that's it. I just going to wipe the tops with my clean cloth. If you want to dip it in vinegar, you can do that. Make sure there's no food or it will not seal. I don't know if you have seasoned canners or those who've canned before. Here's a little tip. You might have already figured this out, but when I put my lids in my my liquid there, my water, I don't put them the way they came in the package because they don't come apart very easily. I put them like so, backwards, wrong sides together, and that way they're easier to pull out of the water. All right, and I just put it on tight, but not, I kind of go like that. I kind of make it tight, and then I do it again. And I don't push it, I don't force it. Just kind of tight like so. And then I just pick it up and put it in my canner, which I need to take the lid off. And nothing's going to crack because everything's hot. Everything's at the same temp. So that's what I'm going to continue to do. If you knew you wanted to use these in soups, or if you want to label it as such when you put your labels on, or if you put labels on, you could use broth, you know, chicken broth or beef broth. If you knew you wanted to just dump this whole thing in some soup in the wintertime or anytime, then feel free to use broth instead of water. All right, I'm putting the last jar. There you go. So 2, 4, 6, 7, 14 pints. And I will put the lid on. And the way this particular one works, you line up the arrows and you just slide it together. And then I'm just going to go ahead and turn it on high. And what I'm looking for now is I'm leaving this valve open. I won't put the weight on yet. I'm leaving this open, and when I see a good steady stream, sometimes I'll start it before it's really a good steady stream of steam, but where it's visibly amount of steam, then I start counting 10 minutes. So I'll get my timer out, and I'll put the timer on 10 minutes, and then I'll let the steam escape for 10 minutes. Now, mind you, I do encourage you to use your manufacturer's instructions. Please, I can't stress that enough. Just go with the manufacturer's instructions that are going to come with your canner. If you've got a secondhand canner, that's great. Congratulations, that's wonderful. That is the best kind, a thrifted or a gifted or whatever. But you can probably, I'm sure nowadays, you can find user's manual online. Or somebody who has a canner like yours maybe. So right now I'm just waiting on the steam to escape or to begin, and then I'll time it for 10 minutes. And after the 10 minutes, I will just set that weight right on there, and we'll go from there. All right, the way I describe this is that if there's a steady stream, it doesn't have to be just really full force necessarily, but there is a steady stream of steam. And so I'm going to start timing for 10 minutes. And let that escape for 10 minutes. The timer just went off, so I just put this on here. A couple of questions folks were asking me recently. These are russet potatoes that I'm canning. I prefer to can russet primarily, or Yukon Gold should be a good one. Actually, you could probably, you can can any potatoes rather. But, the russets are pretty good for that, or Yukon Gold. If you prefer other potatoes to can, let me know in the comments. I'd be interested to know that as well. All right, what we're looking at here is we want the the pressure to get to 11, so 10 is straight up there, so 1 past the 10 on this one. Please be mindful, if you are at a higher altitude, you do need to adjust for that. All right, at this point, I don't want new canners to be intimidated, new canning ladies to be intimidated by something breaking. Yes, something could break. Never had anything to explode. I've had friends, I can think of one friend who had some beans to kind of explode. That has never happened to me. So you can't dwell on what could happen inside your canner. But yeah, I've had jars to break. Not many, probably maybe 5 total in 20 something years maybe. But so don't be intimidated by that. Now, don't come over here and touch your weight. You don't want to touch that. You do want this to get up to 11. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to leave it on high right now because, and then this has happened to me before, I'll look away for just a minute or two and all of a sudden it's way over here and around the 15 or past the 15. You don't want that. I have accidentally not watched it or have not watched it and then it's gone that far, nothing happened. But you really, really, excuse me, want to try to maintain your 11 pounds pressure. So I've got it on high, and by the way, this is a gas stove. I love cooking and canning with gas, and I prefer that. If you're in the market for a stove and you want my opinion, I prefer a gas stove for all things. It's just more accurate, more fast, in my opinion. All right, so I've got it a little bit above medium right now because I know from experience that, excuse me, that this is going to go pretty quickly. You do see some steam coming up from around there. Don't worry about that. Just don't bother it. I believe this is called the petcock, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, so you see that it is raised, so that's what you want, and that's going to lower once your pressure comes down at the end of the canning process. So Just work with your heat to try to get that up to the 11 pounds pressure. And then your goal, once it gets to your 11 pounds, is to maintain that as closely as possible for the amount of time. So my favorite book that I showed you says that the pint should process for 35 minutes, the quarts for 40 minutes, and yesterday I did the half gallons at 50 minutes. So we're looking at 35 minutes. After this gets to the 11 pounds, I'm gonna keep an eye on it. I stay in the kitchen. I know there are other canners, canning machines, canners that you don't have to watch, but I don't have one of those. This is not the only pressure canner I have. I have an All-American that belonged to my great aunt, and it does well also. But I'm using this today for the second, or for the 2 stacks. And they're just boiling away in there. And this is going to get up to the 11 pounds pretty soon. Now we're at 10 pounds. I bought a box of 50 pounds of russet potatoes at an Amish store for, I believe it was 20 something, $25.99, I think it was. And so that's what I've been canning. I buy those in bulk, bought these in bulk. And they were pretty good. I didn't have much waste at all. Other than the peelings, I only had about 3 potatoes that had some bad spots inside. Okay, now we're at 11 pounds pressure. I want to maintain that, and this is also when I start my time. So 35 minutes. Now, if it goes below your 11 pounds, actually, if it goes below 10 pounds is what I go by, because 10 is the number we used to use. Now it's recommended 11. But if it goes below, officially, if it goes below 11 pounds pressure, then you actually have to restart your time once it gets back up to pressure. So just pay attention to that, because you don't want to have to do that. I've only had to do that a couple of times, and then I learned my lesson. So I'm just basically going to adjust if I see, and I have to adjust quite a bit during the process, because I want to maintain that. After your 35 minutes or your designated time in the canner has elapsed, then you just completely turn off the heat and let it sit there for the pressure to reduce, and that's going to take a while. Only after the pressure has reduced do you take off your weight. All right, at this point, we're good to just take this off. If you want to just let that, some people recommend just letting that sit there for about 5 minutes. You can do that as well. Don't have to. I'm going to make sure the steam is away from my face when I remove the lid. And you might actually start to hear some seals at this point. We'll wait for just a couple of minutes. Let it calm down a little bit. And then I'll just remove them with the jar lifter onto my towels. Double thickness towels on the countertop. And I will not touch any of the jars for 24 hours. Especially, you don't want to this is very important, you don't want to check to see if it's sealed by pressing the lid down. You don't want to do that at all either, because you could falsely make it seal, but it's not properly done. So you just don't touch anything. Once you remove it to the towels, you don't touch anything for 24 hours. Or maybe a little under 24 hours, but at least, more than 12 or 18. Okay, see there? canned potatoes. Ready for soup or stew, or draining them for fried potatoes, hash browns. And if you do have some that don't seal, then you can just use them. Two of them. All right, so as these are starting to cool down, they will seal and pop, and that is just a canner's lullaby. We'll come back this time tomorrow, and we'll see how many sealed, or actually in the morning. So right now it's about supper time, and we can come back in the morning and have a good idea of what has sealed, because it will in the first few minutes. Before we check on the potatoes, I want to let you know, because so many of y'all have asked me about my aprons. Now, this is my favorite pattern. I've got 3 of my aprons that I've made for myself. One is a fall print. One is the first one I ever did to practice, and it's kind of my one I don't mind getting dirty and I wear outside in the garden and whatever. But this is the one that actually matches my curtains. I don't have this fabric available because I did buy this on a clearance bolt. But this is my apron, my crossback, full coverage, pretty much full coverage apron. And so many of y'all have been so kind to ask. Yes, I do make them. Yes, I make them to order. You choose the fabric, you choose the size. And I just wanted to make sure that you know that you can find that all that information over on my website at heritageways.com. This calendar year, 2022, I am only able to fill 2 orders per month. So you can place your order, and I will communicate with you when the orders will be filled, but I'm only able to do 2 per month this year. So kind of limited on my time, and I love to make them, but 2 per month. All right, we're gonna look at the potatoes. And it's okay at this point to I usually kind of just feel to see if there is the bump or the ridge. And if I don't feel it, I can tell that it has sealed. So far, all of these have sealed. So then what I do next, and they're cooled, I take the tops off, and you can, check that way too. But that's what they're gonna look. That's what they look like. So the cubes rather, are still intact. They didn't turn into mashed potatoes like my half gallons did. And I was thinking later as well, the half gallons had to cook for 50 minutes. So that's probably yet another reason why they got so cooked. I don't want to say mushy, because that sounds negative, but they are able to be used in soup. I will wash each jar. I'll remove the rings, and I'll use those for my next canning project or another canning project. And I will wash these just in slightly soapy water, just a couple of drops of soap and warm water in the sink to just get them clean, because there is some potato residue, some starch, or some potatoes there on top. That, we didn't lose much liquid. It's pretty much where we put it. So if you were concerned about that. How to can potatoes for the beginning canner, the person who wants to start canning. And I hope that has been a blessing to you. Till next time, make sure to count your blessings, friends. Bye-bye.